You didn't click this by accident. Something in you paused, hesitated, felt exposed. That quiet discomfort you feel right now, that's not anxiety. That's recognition. Because part of you already knows what this video is going to say. You've just been avoiding it. Most people don't ruin their lives through one dramatic mistake. They do it slowly, politely, reasonably. They tell themselves comforting stories and call it wisdom. And you, whether you admit it or not, have been telling yourself one too. You wake up, go through the motions, do what's expected, and call it stability. But beneath the routine, there's a dull pressure, a sense that you are underusing your life, that you are living adjacent to who you could be. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard called this despair, not despair over losing something, but despair over never becoming yourself. And the most dangerous part was this: you can live an entire life in that state and never collapse, never fall apart, never fail. You'll just slowly disappear. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that the greatest threat to humanity wasn't evil, but comfort. Because comfort makes you obedient, predictable, easy to manage. You start measuring your life by safety instead of truth, by approval instead of meaning, by relief instead of depth. And unconsciously, you begin shrinking. Plato described this with the allegory of the cave. Prisoners chained in darkness, watching shadows on a wall, believing that's reality. But here's the part people miss. The prisoners aren't held down by force. They're held down by familiarity. The fire is warm, the shadows are known, and the thought of turning around, of seeing something that would invalidate everything you've believed, feels terrifying. Because if you turned around, you'd have to admit how long you've been lying to yourself. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, writing under Nazi Germany, spoke of something he called stupidity, not a lack of intelligence, but a moral failure of courage. People who surrender their thinking to the collective, who repeat ideas because they're safe, not because they're true. He believed this was more dangerous than malice, because malicious people know what they're doing, but compliant people don't. And that's the uncomfortable truth you probably don't want to hear. You are not stuck because life is unfair. You are stuck because at some point you chose comfort over honesty. You avoided a conversation, delayed a decision, stayed quiet when something inside you wanted to scream no. You didn't betray the world. You betrayed yourself, incrementally. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this darker side of human nature. He believed people rarely change unless pain forces them to, not because they're incapable, but because they are attached to who they've been pretending to be. And pretending is exhausting. That tiredness you feel? It's not from working too hard, it's from living out of alignment. Carl Jung put it bluntly: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. In other words, the patterns you don't confront will keep repeating. Different faces, same outcomes. You might tell yourself, this is just how life is, but that's not wisdom. That's resignation, dressed up as maturity. Here's the twist no one prepares you for. The more self-aware you become, the lonelier you may feel. Because once you see clearly, you can't unsee. You'll notice how many people are asleep inside their own routines, how often conversations avoid truth, how rarely people ask why. And you'll feel the pull to shrink back, to go quiet again. But that's the final test. Nietzsche believed that becoming who you are meant to be requires a period of self-overcoming, a kind of internal burning, where old identities die. That's why growth feels like grief. You are mourning the version of yourself that felt safe but small, the version that blended in, the version that waited for permission. And here's the most unsettling realization of all: no one is coming to save you from a life that doesn't fit you. No one will give you permission to become more honest, more disciplined, more alive. That choice is profoundly private, And it begins with a question most people are too afraid to ask. What am I gaining by staying the same? Because you are gaining something. Certainty, predictability, belonging. But the cost is slow and invisible. Muted ambition, dull curiosity, a life that looks fine from the outside and hollow from within. Plato believed the highest form of injustice was appearing, just while being unjust to yourself. Living a life that looks respectable but feels false. So if you feel unsettled right now, good. That means you're awake. You don't need to tear your life apart tomorrow. You don't need a dramatic reinvention. But you do need one thing: radical honesty. About what drains you, about what excites you, about what you've been postponing out of fear. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself, the world feels different, sharper, heavier, more real. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but discomfort is the entrance fee to a meaningful life. So don't ask whether you're lost. Ask whether you've been brave enough to be found. And when this video ends, and the noise of the world returns, notice what stays with you. That lingering tension, that quiet pull, that's not confusion. That's the truth waiting for you to stop running. And that truth, once you notice it, will not leave you alone. You might try to drown it out with noise. More content, more productivity, more distractions dressed up as self-improvement. But truth has a strange patience. It doesn't shout, it waits. You felt this before. Late at night, when everything goes quiet and your mind stops performing. When you replay moments you never talk about. When you imagine a version of your life that feels both terrifying and honest. That version scares you because it demands responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that humans are condemned to freedom. Not gifted, condemned. Because freedom means you can no longer blame your parents, your past, your circumstances, or the system forever. At some point, explanation becomes excuse. And this is where many people quietly retreat. They sense that clarity is approaching, and they turn away, because clarity removes alibis. You may tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, but history shows that the right time never announces itself. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who carried unimaginable pressure, wrote that most people delay living as if they have a second life stored somewhere, as if time were refundable. But time is ruthless. It doesn't argue, it doesn't negotiate, it simply passes. And the tragedy is not death. The tragedy is unused life. Think of how many ideas never leave people's minds, how many truths die unspoken, how many talents rot because they were never risked. Not because people were incapable, but because they were afraid of standing alone. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable. The moment you step outside the familiar, you will lose approval before you gain respect. This is why conformity feels safe. It comes with instant validation. But growth doesn't clap for you. It isolates you first. When you begin to change, people around you may feel unsettled. Not because you're wrong, but because your transformation threatens their justification for staying the same. So they'll minimize you, joke about your seriousness, call your depth overthinking. And here's the trap. You might start dimming yourself again, just to belong. But belonging at the cost of your integrity is a slow erosion of the soul. Plato warned that the soul deteriorates not only through injustice, but through compromise with what you know is false. That's why you feel tension when you ignore your inner voice. That voice isn't random. It's your conscience trying to keep you whole. Carl Jung believed the psyche fragments when we betray our authentic self too often. Anxiety, numbness, and apathy are not flaws. They are signals. Signals that something essential is being suppressed. And suppression has consequences. You don't just suppress desire, you suppress vitality. That's why some people appear alive on the outside but empty behind their eyes. They learned how to survive, but forgot how to mean something to themselves. Nietzsche called this the last man, comfortable, entertained, safe, but deeply bored and spiritually exhausted. The last man doesn't suffer greatly. He just never risks greatness. And you can feel when you're drifting toward that state. Your days blur. Your curiosity dulls. Your sense of time accelerates. Years begin to disappear, but here's the part no one tells you. The moment you decide to live honestly, your life becomes heavier, but clearer, and clarity is worth the wait. You begin noticing which conversations nourish you and which drain you, which habits are anesthetics and which are anchors, which ambitions are yours and which were inherited. This discernment is painful at first because it forces separation. You may outgrow people, beliefs, identities you once relied on, and grief will follow. Not because you were wrong to let go, but because growth always demands a funeral. Nietzsche said that to create something new, one must first destroy an old idol. And often, that idol is the image of who you thought you were supposed to be. The obedient one, the agreeable one, the version of you that never made waves. Letting that identity die feels like betrayal, but staying loyal to it is self-abandonment. So the question becomes, which betrayal are you willing to live with? History remembers those who chose the harder one. People like Socrates, who chose death over intellectual dishonesty. Bonhoeffer, who chose resistance over safety. Thinkers who refused to outsource their conscience. They weren't fearless, they were simply unwilling to live a lie. And that same choice appears quietly in your life every day, in what you tolerate, in what you avoid, in what you postpone. Transformation does not begin with motivation. It begins with revulsion, a deep refusal to continue living beneath your capacity. That moment when you think, I cannot do this to myself anymore. That is not weakness. That is awakening. From there, discipline stops feeling like punishment. It becomes protection. Boundaries stop feeling selfish. They become survival. And solitude, once feared, becomes sacred. Because solitude is where your real voice returns. Not the voice shaped by trends. Not the voice optimized for approval. But the voice that speaks when no one is watching. Jung believed individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires descending into your inner chaos without fleeing, facing your contradictions, your shadow, your unlived life. Most people never go there, but if you do, something changes. You stop asking, how do I fit in? And start asking, what is being asked of me? And that question rearranges everything. Your work becomes more intentional, your relationships more selective, your time more precious. You stop consuming meaning and start creating it. This is why the path feels lonely at first. Because you're walking against the current of unconscious living. But loneliness is temporary. Integrity is permanent. Eventually, you meet others who have made the same inward commitment. Not many, but enough. And the connection feels different, deeper, quieter, real. So if you feel unsettled right now, don't rush to soothe it. Sit with it. Let it show you what you've been avoiding. Because clarity is not cruel. It's compassionate. It strips away what doesn't belong, so you can finally carry what does. And when you look back one day, you won't remember how safe you played it. You'll remember whether you were honest, whether you chose truth over comfort, meaning over ease, depth over distraction. That is the measure of a life. And the choice, quietly, relentlessly, is still yours.